My name is Dan Palumbo and the chair of the Finance Committee. And this meeting is held in accordance with the Freedom of Information Act. News and media has been notified and a copy of the agenda has been made available to the public. The meeting is open to the public and the public is welcome to attend in person. All persons wishing to attend the meeting by virtual means may do so via YouTube, Sumter School District Board Meeting, and Sumter School District's Facebook page. Vision. Sumter School District is committed to educating, empowering, and enriching the lives of all students to reach their full potential. Mission. Sumter School District is committed to providing a safe, nurturing, and high-quality educational environment and supports diversity and equips students for local and global success. The committee members for today is myself and Ms. Tara Kusar-Johnson and Mr. Jeff Zell, who is virtual today. Subcommittee members is Mr. Paul Robbins and Mr. Mitchell Williams, hopefully he'll be here soon, and Mr. Kramer. The administration, our superintendent, Dr. William T. Wright, Jr., and Ms. Spearman is the Chief Financial Officer, and Ms. Scott is the Administrative Manager and Superintendent and Board of Trustees. I'm calling the meeting to order. I just want to first thank you for everybody that is able to attend. Hopefully today is basically a wrap up of some of the old business information, and to move on to hopefully we'll have some school board policy changes. I just want one thing to go over, and give me 1 second, is this is in accordance to the state law of what a school board member's responsibility, that I just want to reiterate is in regards to the finance portion, and this with this committee, is to act with fiscal responsibility, work to ensure adequate resources that are distributed equitably to schools, staff, and students, ensure that written policies that are set in efficient administration of purchasing, accounting, and payroll procedures, monitor budget expenditures regularly, keep the community informed and financial needs of the district, and to invite the public input during the budget process, annually approve the budget requests for the agencies and certain in service under the control of the board as prepared by the state superintendent of education prior to being submitted to the governor and the General Assembly. So we have, as a reminder, and I just want to remind us as a committee that you're helping us out, and as board members, the responsibilities on the finance side, that I will also remind our fellow school board members that during the next school board meeting. That entails grants and entails all different finance pieces that get presented for that we're the oversight for our children and the staff and the employees of the school district. So with that being said, just want to get on to number 2, the agenda. 2.1, approval of the agenda. If there's any issues of the agenda, I'd like to hear at this point in time. Nothing at this time. 3.1, approval of the consent agenda items, September 7th of 2023 meeting minutes. Any issues or about the meeting minutes back on September 7th? All right. And the first thing we're going to get to, and a lot of some of this stuff is we kind of already discussed, and I think and even some of the stuff that the superintendent had the state come in here, especially with the Title I, to kind of educate the school board. Now I'd like to talk it over more, and then actually, if we want to bring it up to for some type of policy change. Uh, First on 4.1, discussion of proposed policy to the Sumter School District policy is to have future Title I stipends slash, to me, bonuses for it's for certified teachers, because that's, we can only use Title I for certified teachers, approved by the Sumter School Board of Trustees. Put that out there for discussion before I'll kind of put my opinion to it. Dr. Wright, you know.
Mr. Chair, who are you looking for discussion from? I mean, I can certainly speak initially, if you like, to the cumbersome nature of doing it. So currently, and Ms. Spearman, please chime in where I go astray, but currently the process is set up where overarching Title I budgets, if you will, are approved and or brought to the Board of Trustees, just as in any other budgetary oversight is. The issue that we got into, where I think there might have been some angst, was kind of multifaceted, but basically it occurred during a transition of those that are responsible for executing the budgets. There are audit processes in place currently that involve the state. The State Department of Education has to approve budget, and they go through it with line item and fine combing and all those kinds of things, and they're very explicit about what we can and cannot do, what is allowable, and things of that nature. I think from what I can remember, ladies and gentlemen of the board, the issue really last year was kind of the disparity, and if you worked at one place, you got X, Y, and Z. So we have been very deliberate about having those discussions, and Mrs. Rose has done an excellent job of kind of talking about what is and is not permissible. One of the reasons why we were so adamant or happy that she accepted the position is because of her acuity in Title I. When she was a principal, very, very thorough with the work that she did. So I guess what I'm really trying to say is, we have a significant amount of safeguards in place because, believe you me, I didn't enjoy having to go through the outcome of that either. Mm-hmm. And as we move forward, the issue is that schools, while Title I has specific restrictions that are required and expected, principals and schools more specifically still need to have flexibility, because while the categories of things should be consistent across the board, the individual needs of the schools and the children in the schools primarily, there still has to be flexibility. So I want us to be careful to regulate and monitor and do all those things that we need to do, but we still got to have flexibility at the school level, because if I am in a school that is, that has an 80% poverty rate and another school that has a 65% poverty rate, the way that I address serving kids may be different. So I guess what I'm really saying, Mr. Chairman, is I don't want us to over-regulate ourselves to the point where principals still don't have the flexibility to be able to assess and evaluate with our oversight. We're not going to just let them, You know, we're not just let them do whatever they want to do, but we need to maintain the flexibility. So I think that's important as we're moving forward, because if we don't do that, then I think that, you know, your financial discussions will inundate board business. It'll be a lot of work, you know, to line item each thing and then make a decision about whether it's okay or not. So that's about the best way I can put it, Mr. Chair.
And I'm far from
Okay.
looking at regulating. I do not want to get into. I think what happens to make sure it never happens again is basically like a policy would be all. And again, there's certain things that they have to have stipends for that they do a specific job, and I am not talking about any of that. That is like, we don't want to get into that weeds and all that. This is, hey, we're getting close to the end of the year. We have money, and what's the fastest way to spend it? Is how I look at it. It was legal. Nothing. There was no issues on that. I'm not saying that. But there's 100 items plus, because I read it all, of different ways to spend that money, and I get it. I've been there. I've done the job of trying to spend so much money, and you only have a couple of weeks, a couple of weeks to spend. But the last thing I would say with Title I funds would be, it was almost like we want to get out of jail free card, and hey, this is the way to do it, which is, again, totally legal. And I'm not saying that there was, it was, but to me, that the Title I funds need to go to those kids. No matter what, it goes directly to those children that are in impoverished areas. And I'm all about the kids. That's my number one thing. And like I said, I was one of those kids. So part of it, yes, it is emotional, but I know how important that funding can be, because I was a success from doing that. So what I was looking at is a policy of all mass bonus or stipends, whatever the legal term is, for certified teachers need to be approved by the Sumter School Board. Basically, that's where is basically just to cover the oversight of making sure that doesn't happen, because we as a board need to be questioning, okay, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? And we don't want to wait to the last minute of, okay, we did it, and we find out 3 months later. So, any questions or any other for discussion?
Mr. Chair, Jeffrey Bell has a question.
Oh. Yes, Jeff.
Mr. Chair, I used a little raise my hand. Thank you, Mr. Robbins, for paying attention to that. So first I just want to say, cumbersome process, as you stated, lots of laws, lots of regulations, and certainly don't want to prevent any of that. I'm speaking for myself, but I think just having some oversight would be beneficial to us as a board, and I think that would be able to kind of keep and quell some of the anxieties that may arise from it. So that's kind of where my heart is, but I agree with both of you gentlemen. I don't think it was anything nefarious was going on. I just think it was sort of a clumsy process that we were made aware of kind of last minute, and that's the sort of thing I want to kind of keep from happening. We need to kind of show the public that we're in front of things, not behind them, if you will. So anyway, I just appreciate it. Thank you for those words. I certainly agree with them. Thank you.
And Mr. Chair, just to state this around that process, I don't think that we need to overexert powers either. However, I do think it is important that we understand, again, what that plan or what individual school plans look like, that they are in writing, and we can pick one up and see it at any time, and understand if those finances or those funds are being used along the way, just to avoid an overbearance of funds at the end of the process.
Mr. Chair, I'm going to kind of echo in that sitting on many other boards, policy is not the best way to do this, because it does, the policy becomes cumbersome, and then if you start with one, there's another, and then there's another, and we have individuals in place that there to do their job. Again, nothing was done illegally or anything like that, but just better communication is what it is in this thing. And policy, again, I try to work policies down so that you're not being overburdensome on the board and the employees. So communication is what I would say would be the better way of doing this.
Mr. Chair, if I might make a suggestion to see if we can kind of get us to where maybe we need to be. I do think that it is okay and within our scope, if you will. We can, at the point in which budget's been created, the budget is ready to be forwarded, presented, submitted, whatever that term is in the state of South Carolina, to SCDE for auditing and so forth. I mean, I think it's probably within our purview to be able to present that information somehow to you all, maybe at a work session or something around the time of that submission for review and update and that kind of thing. I just really want us to stay away from putting things in writing that end up keeping us from being able to move the process along, because with the need to expedite funding and making sure that kids get what they need, if we've got to wait for a meeting and approval, sometimes that doesn't allow us to be as timely as we could. That's really what I'm saying, Mr. Chair. Oversight is oversight. I don't have an issue with that, but I just want us to be careful about relegating approvals to second and fourth Mondays, if that makes sense, you know. So that's the thing that I'm trying to, but I think we can, I think we can provide information. I think it can be, we can be a little bit more descriptive about what we're doing and percentages and, how much we've spent and where we got, those kinds of things. I think we can certainly report out to this committee or to the board as a whole, which I think will give you all the information that you need and, the questions that you might have. We can figure out how to do that at a good interval to make sure that, that you guys are informed. But I'm just a little leery for us to regulate that, because of there's a lot of money and a lot of transactions, that's the best word to use, that are occurred with spending in general in the school district, particularly with Title I funding. So, it'd be a little bit cumbersome to have to wait for that. That's really what I'm kind of saying. If that'll work now. If not, then I'm interested in having that discussion. But that's.
Because just my concern is, damn if you do. It's basically, hey, we don't want it to happen again.
Sure.
And what the oversight is, we were totally left in the dark until we figured it out by other ways. And that's my concern and there's another concern actually I do, is because some things that are not reported, and we're going to get into this in 4-2, is, okay, we get the general funds and they get present us a plan, and we kind of have a big idea of what we're purchasing, the big items. some of those items that you wouldn't have to tell us in the general funds, you go ahead and purchase through the Title I funds that you could, it could be legit, that could be a questionable out there. So that's my I, and when we get into 4-.2 is a way, like you were saying, I would like to see at least quarterly is actually a meeting, not at this, I think as a board, we definitely need to hear them, to hear the Title I funds of how they're getting spent. And we, to this day, we haven't gotten an update yet on the Title Is for this year. So that's kind of what my concern with is a policy to make sure at least at minimum 4 times a year that we're actually getting presented the plan, financial and the educational portion of it is so we know what's going on with the Title I, because it's almost it's equivalent to the general funds, and as in how much money is a lot of money that deals with that, and we just don't know what's going on with that program. And for us as a board, we should have an oversight on what's going on there.
Okay. So basically a quarterly status report.
Correct. And then whatever the plan for the beginning, with the new plan for next year, just like Ms. Spearman gives us all the time, and she does it monthly, but what basically is what we should be getting the same thing with the Title I.
Okay.
Title I, mirroring what Ms. Spearman does, but Dr. Rhodes does it on the other side.
Okay. I'm looking at the folks that are going to respond. Well, I don't. Let me turn that on. I don't see that as being problematic. I mean, I think we can, quarterly, we can include that as a report and go from there. That's. And then if once we do that, Mr. Palumbo, if we feel like we need more or something
More,
different,
yeah.
then we can. But I think we can set it up right now to do it quarterly. My suggestion would be in conjunction with maybe or in addition to when Mrs. Spearman is doing her finance report, we can just and here's what's going on with Title I and do that. Every 3 months, whatever those quarterly dates would be. And we try to get one done pretty quickly here because of the timing of year, maybe, maybe at the next full meeting we have, well, certainly by the work session, I think would be appropriate, just because of the time of year it is. And we'll set it up from there. Does that kind of get us to where we need to? Okay.
Can I just clarify, just for clarification for me, I guess I'm still trying to, what is the end result of what are you trying to see here? Just how an oversight, just to make sure that these Title I, again, I'm just trying to figure out what your end result of this is going to be.
The end result, from my opinion, and I think all of us will have our different opinions on it. For me, it would be okay, what are we spending our money on? Well, big pictures, I'm not talking about folders or anything like that. Like for example, one of the schools purchased that, I don't think we would have never known. They purchased with Title I funds, a huge virtual system for their kids. It's stuff that was a great idea, which other schools may want to do it, and we just don't know. But and then also taxpayer money, making sure taxpayers getting what their money's worth out of it, of what we're spending our money on, making sure that is programs, whatever programs that they have, is making sure that is working. And if it's not working, why are we spending money on those type of programs out there?
Question is, and again, I'm not on that side, is, are you looking for a certain dollar amount and above? And I'm just asking the question that it'd be easier clarification for when this report, or for what they're presenting to you, that instead of having just a big old sheet and then you got to go through line item, trying to figure it out from time constraint, is if there's a certain dollar amount, that you all are interested in, that will be a better way to highlight of what's going on and what you all are seeing here. That's why
Yeah.
I'm asking the question of clarification as to where and what you want out of this.
Gotcha.
Yeah, as I think about it, it's tracking to spend. It's tracking to spend. It's that, it doesn't have to be a necessary dollar amount, because some schools may choose to use their funds in the fourth quarter or the last quarter of the year in the spring when they're taking students on field trips, so they may show a larger amount still sitting in their school's budget for Title I. So for me, it is tracking to spend, and Mrs. Palumbo did mention something that I think is important. If these Title I funds are intended to enrich our students, to enhance their learning, then I do think that the school should be looking at if how we're spending these funds are actually making a difference in how our students are performing or behaving, whatever it is that they're doing.
Mr. Zell's got a question.
Yes, Mrs.
Mr. Chairman, I think that you all are dead on with this. I just want to sort of, you know, make to further the point that Ms. Tara Johnson made, is that
Ms. Spearman, you have anything that you can, yeah?
Is it on? Okay. Well, first of all, I can see your concern. I can see that you want to see a little bit more of Title I. I think with Dr. McLeod in here as head of that area, she's agreed that we can provide some level of quarterly transparency. I would be happy to get in the habit of presenting that with you someone being available if there are some questions. Because, you know, my office maintains those numbers, and they do the programmatic piece. So we work hand in hand to make sure that Title I is in compliance. But I do want this body to know that on October 18th, Sumter School District received a monitoring visit from the State Department to audit its protocols, its procedures, its adherence to regulations of federal government in regards to how we use and document the use of our federal funds. When we receive them and when we expend them, when we go back and claim them, the whole process. After an in-depth review of the district's records, the Federal Programs Office received an all-clear status from the State Department. This memo that we got from the State Department basically says that the information provided by Ms. Rose and her team demonstrated that the district's plans met the required elements of the monitoring protocol, resulting in this all-clear rating with no instances of noncompliance, which is what we said. The OFSA notes that Ms. Rose and her team diligently worked to get the district's evidence organized in a manner that showcased the efforts to improve the lives of our students. The district's team welcomed feedback, professional development that was provided by OFSA. The team should be commended on their hard work and collaboration. The 3 school visits that were conducted during this monitoring visit attest to the work of the district schools that they were doing to ensure the students meet the profile of the South Carolina graduate. They went on to say that we are considered a model district for our Title I program and how we presented and organized information. I just believe this needed to be said along with what you're saying. I'm not saying this to downplay what you're saying because we are all in agreement that we need to give you some more information regarding Title I and how we use those funds. But just know that there are no instances of noncompliance, as you stated, and that we're dealing with an excellent rating of how our Title I office is handling these funds. Because the claims that we submit, if they're not allowable, we're not getting a dollar back, and my general fund is going to have to pay for it, and I don't want that. So just, I wanted to make sure that was underlying with this discussion as well. Thank you for the time.
And Mr. Chair, I'd like to thank Ms. Spearman for reminding us of that, because I do think that it was mentioned to us whenever we had this conversation before. But also, I think that this is yet another example of an opportunity for us to showcase in our district to the community how well we are doing certain things. When we don't take advantage of opportunities to showcase when we're doing things well, the only thing people are going to remember is what we're doing poorly.
Thank you.
So let's make certain that we, because the item should have had that. They should have published that. But if we didn't give it to them, then they wouldn't. So the onus is on us to make certain that we're doing that and doing it consistently.
Thank you.
And Mr. Chair, just real quick, I just want to kind of echo that and just add to it. And I'm not trying to steal your thunder, Ms. Johnson. I just think that you're right on. That said, is, I agree from the presentations that were given to this body by our Title I overseers and managers. I've been nothing but impressed by the level of professionalism and data that's presented to us. However, also, and I agree with Ms. Sherman on this, is that, though there is an opportunity, though the State Department may see us doing very well and having a model program, that's one side of the coin. The other side of the coin, unfortunately, was that a whole lot of teachers were contacting a whole lot of board members regarding reasons why they didn't get bonuses and others did. And so that's where I think us having oversight and being in front of it will provide some value and really kind of keep our credibility intact. I don't believe anybody did anything wrong or nefarious, but I think it's one of those things where we just got to get better with communicating what we're doing.
Absolutely.
So, I just wanted to add that. Thank you so much for
And I'll jump on that a little bit. And Mr. Zell, you hit it right on the head, is communication. This goes all the way back to the time I've been in the military and even communication. If you cannot communicate, you're going to die. That's basically what it is. And this is just that portion of it, of the communication and making sure it's a flow from the district to present this information to our constituents, that we can pass that on to because they do talk and they do call us. And the teachers are also our constituents, and that we owe answers to them, that you got to do better. We all have to do better on communication portion of it. And again, and then we are directed as a board to be the oversight of all funds. And we have to answer for all that information. So when it looks like we don't have an answer, it doesn't look like we're doing our job. And I hate being railroaded. That's the worst thing for me. That's my pet peeve. I don't want to be railroaded. And I think with Dr. Wright bringing up, like we're kind of already into 4.2, is to have it set up where it is a standard of presenting that information, just like they do with the general funds, to present. And it can be very similar to how Ms. Spearman presents on the general funds, because she does a good job on showing us the big ticketed items and what we need to be concerned with, and why we're not spending, or we're spending too much, whatever we're doing. It's the same. It's basically, we were kind of looking at the Title Ones to be a same version of what we get with the general funds.
Mr. Palomo, if I may, I think the presentation, we'll have to, and we can do this and get it back to this group. We probably want to be strategic about the wins of when these quarterly presentations are, just because the way Title I funding works and the deadlines and all of that, it wouldn't. There might be some benefit in doing it, at the beginning of the school year, but it doesn't need to be the first day, for instance. So there's some, we'll try to work out 4 appropriate times ish that we can get back to you. But I think I think that we can certainly provide that information, and October would be, as we've learned, would be a good time to present, because then we can say, hey, guess what? This body said that we did a very good job, in addition to the other information that we're going to provide. So I think we can handle that piece, and then that kind of checks the communication box, as well as it allows us to be able to showcase this good work, because there's been a significant amount of conversation that operationally we need to keep internal for sure, but we've got a tremendous amount of oversight in terms of what we're doing, and Mrs. Rhodes spends a significant amount of time in conversation with those who have Title I budgets about doing it right, and so forth and so on. So I don't have an expectation that we will, particularly without communication, be in a situation where we're doing stuff and you guys aren't informed. I mean, that's not our intent at all. Will there be some, as you said earlier, some folders purchased occasionally? Yeah, sure there will, because that's a part of what happens on the individual basis. But categorically, we can certainly take care of that through this reporting mechanism that we're talking about now.
And one thing also and I know we're just doing more of the finance piece in here, is I do know with the academic, the education committee and Dr. McLeod, if there's, and this is maybe where maybe it has to be a Title I just on the agenda by itself, because I know the board is probably very, and Ms. Johnson, you're on the academic committee, is you probably have questions of what programs that we're purchasing on the academic. Okay, is it worth it? Is it? So that's where I think maybe Dr. McLeod, and again, this kind of has to have you guys involved on this, is because the board may have questions more for even Dr. McLeod on what type of programs that they're purchasing and what's beneficial. So that's the other thing to kind of bring up is, and again, you're the manager to figure out what's the easiest. Is it both Title I and the general fund briefing, or do you separate and just do the Title I and the academic portion to put it together?
If I may, give me a little bit of time to think about that one. I don't have a problem with either. What I want to do is create a situation that flows better for us. I mean, I think the marching orders that I'd like to have an opportunity to execute are, we will provide reports quarterly. I think I need a little bit more time to think about and honestly talk with Mrs. Rhodes about, because also here's the other thing too. Not that we certainly aren't trying to hide anything, since we got the item in the room, but there are some things that Title I funding does that we have to be careful about how we report it. And here's what I mean. If we are, for instance, hiring a person to do work with special needs, I'm sorry, SEL, social emotional learning. I mean, I can tell you that we're hiring this person to do X, Y, and Z, but depending on if someone says, well, what is that salary? You know, if it's $50,000 or above, we're required to report it. If it's less than $50,000, then so why am I saying that? We just need to talk a little bit about formatting, you know, how we do it and so forth and so on. We'll get it done. We will present what we can and so that it's sufficient. But I just need a little bit more time to figure out with my staff, like, you know, does that look like an addendum to the general fund, or is this a separate thing, or, you know, that's the piece I think that we need a little bit more time to work out if we can, Mr. Chair, to make sure that it's palatable for what we're trying to do.
And I don't want to beat a dead horse because I know we need to move on
Yep.
given the time that we've spent here and have other agenda items. But that's where I want to be sure that I communicate. I don't want us to go in the weeds on this. We just need to keep it high level. If it's categorized or whatever it looks like, I don't need to know every time a folder is purchased. I just need to know those things that I mentioned, tracking to spend, and high level, how are these funds benefiting our students? What are the outcomes? What have we identified, or what do we know already?
We can certainly, we can certainly do that. I don't think so.
All right, again, like Ms. John said, we kind of hit 4.2 already. Anything else that you want to hit on actually having, is having, and basically quarterly, this is reported, and any other conversation you want to jump on that? Okay. Well, I'll move on to 4.3, and this goes along with the R.E. Davis, in discussion with the R.E. Davis line item. I'm looking at, because we haven't gotten anything, and because we, basically, I'll give you the backstory. For the committee, we had a vote, it was amended, and we're waiting for an estimate from the district to see to move on with the stadium. Right now, we didn't have it, estimate. I know there's been updates to Maywood, but so my suggestion is going to amend the vote and send back all 400, the line item to the facility committee and allow them to determine what they want to do with that bond, the bond. Dr. Wright, you have anything on with R.E. Davis and Maywood?
Yes, sir, a little bit. So what has happened at the site, as you mentioned briefly, we have done some work out there. Our maintenance staff has worked diligently, and Mr. Myers, please fill in anything I miss here, but we have done some track renovations. To not go into too much detail, we had about 4 or 5 inches of grass on the entire track all the way around. That has been removed. We've replaced it with appropriate running material, clay, things of that nature. We did some building upfits. And actually, there was a design drawing for an additional facility need out there to meet Title IX compliances in terms of having adequate facilities. That proposal was presented to the board chair, not the committee chair, I want to be clear. And we were instructed at that point to hold on to it and wait until a later date. So I just want to be clear to this committee, that's kind of why we're in a holding pattern. That discussion was held, when was that held roughly, Mr. Myers? A couple months ago, that's what I was thinking, probably November-ish. And so I'll follow up, Mr. Chair, to see, you know, kind of what the next steps are. But we have basically asked for a drawing for the property, for that extra building. That again gets us in Title IX compliance. It will have, it will allow us to have dressing and locker facilities for both sexes, because obviously we have sports that will be at that school, at that site, that will be for both sexes. In addition to that, and I do need to do a little bit of the history, not much, but a little bit. So the initial funding was set up for R.E. Davis's use on campus, and so that's where it initially came from. And then after an assessment of the field and the field conditions and so forth, it was deemed that a football field couldn't be constructed there. So that's how we ended up doing the work that we've done at the Maywood site. I made the decision initially to do the initial work because we were able to do it within the aforementioned capital outlay, because we're not talking about, I mean, I don't remember the exact figures. They could, I'm sure Ms. Spearman could tell us or could get that for us. But the initial work that we did, I asked to be done within the initial purview of what's going on. So the question becomes, I guess, for me, it's really not an if, but if we continue on, you know, how much does that cost? And I think we've got some cost estimates on what can be done. It's just a matter of me getting back with the chairman to get it shared with the entire board, because we were asked to put it on hold.
But in the meantime, especially with the bond,
Yep.
we don't need it. We can't. Basically, it needs to go. Still, in a way, it has to go back to the facility committee to come up with, to approve whatever we're going to have to approve with that funds. So why we just get that line item off and send it right back to the facility committee, and they can figure all this out, and then when they can bring it up to the board, we'll either approve it or disapprove it.
I think, and we'll have to go back and look, the decision to place the money in the line item earmarked for R.E. Davis, I think, was board action. So
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It has to get.
Yeah, the original allocation, the total is actually $388,651. It was land. There were 3 line items. Land was $98,382. The athletic field was $90,269.50, and then there was the field house, and that is what we can move on if I'm understanding correctly. The field house was slated at $200,000. So those are the 3 line items that the original bond approved for.
So, because we approved that, we're going to have to, because remember with some of those other line items, we moved the money to IT, I think it was it a couple of months ago, remember? There were some old line items that we moved some of that money.
Well, not this month.
No. What I'm saying is we as a board, we have to, because it's not going to go to R.E. Davis, so it's a whole new title for it. We have to approve and disapprove that. Correct? Because it's not R.E. Davis anymore.
So I have a clarifying question.
Yeah.
Of the 388,000, were not some of those funds used for the upgrades that were made at Maywood? They weren't?
No,
That
they
was
were
a
not, because we
diff-
were told to halt and hold, and there were other line items that supported those
Those
projects.
pro-
They might
okay.
not have said R.E. Davis, but they were for
Okay.
upgrades and what have you that were approved.
So for lack of a, Mr. Mills is here, isn't he? For lack of a better explanation, I asked Mrs. Spearman and Mr. Myers to see if we had capital outlay funds, so our normal capital outlay funds, to do this initial work because of the timing that we needed to have it done and because of the brevity and scope of it. I asked them to do that because I wanted us to proceed with necessary work in this case, yet maintain this whatever that figure is that she just said. And I want to be clear that that kind of behavior is not unusual. Superintendents make those kind of decisions all the
Use general
time
fund.
with appointed capital outlay funds for projects that we, so it wasn't, this, it may seem unusual because of where it was, but it really wasn't unusual. The other piece of the R.E. Davis clarification, if you will, is although the field that we have selected to do this work to is at an alternative site, it's on the old Maywood campus, the work is being upfitted for R.E. Davis teams, which is not unlike Crestwood High School that's currently playing at Hillcrest. So I want us to be clear that if the board decides to continue with the work that has been started there, it would not be out of the ordinary to continue as it is because the kids that are using the facility are R.E. Davis students. So I just wanted to make that clarification. Now, again, board's decision, we have the information, we can provide you with, here is what is proposed, here's what are the costs. And, I was waiting for the board chair's direction, but we'll reach out to him and see. We're ready to do that. We've had it for a couple of months. And then I think the board needs, to make a decision about what, or the facilities committee, however it's going to go, Mr. Chair. I think that's within the board's purview. We just kind of need to know how to proceed from here.
And that's what I'm trying to
Yes,
get
sir.
at, is basically, let's just, because it's classified as R.E. Davis Stadium, it's not Maywood. So it may, to us, to be safe as a board, to say, hey, we'll decline it now, send it back to the facility board, have them look at whatever, and let them bring it up to us, to a board, and say, hey, this is what we're planning on wanting to do out there. Also, because there may be extra money then, because they may just say, okay, with the other money, we want to do what else with the middle schools out. It could be middle schools, it could be whatever it is. I think it'll be right for the facilities committee to handle all that and allow them to run the ball. But right now, technically, it's in limbo right now. And if the board just says, hey, send it back to as a motion, send it back to the facilities committee and have them bring it up to us to say whatever they're going to plan on doing. I think that's, to me, the most appropriate thing that you kind of want to do, is because they're the ones that really will decide and bring whatever the plan is up to us as a board to figure out what they want to do with the funds. Any question?
So
No.
I think just for clarification, conceptually, we're going to send, we're going to ask the facilities committee for a recommendation as
Correct.
to how we proceed forward. That's pretty much
Exactly.
what.
That's
Okay.
basically what it is.
Okay. Yeah.
Is get it off the books. Hey, it's not R.E. Davis. Facilities committee, because they may add stuff to it, because if you saved money, I don't know what you
Okay.
could have. It may only cost us $200,000. Okay, you got an extra $100,000. What are you going to do with it? And so the facility committee can say, well, this is our plan. It could be for middle schools. We're going to update their scoreboards. I don't know. Basically, I think that's their job in the committee to come up with that plan. Yes, Mr. Robinson.
I'm just asking this question, so are you saying from the finance committee that this is still approved for $400,000?
Oh, the 390. Yeah,
Well, I mean,
yeah, yeah.
388, blah, blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah, but that this does not have to come back to the finance committee, it just needs to go to the facilities and go from there.
Yeah, basically is the motion would be, and this is where discussion is, I'll put up the motion and say, hey, send this money back to facilities committee and have them figure out and present us what they're going to plan on with the future plans of what they're gonna do with the money.
As long as it stays within the 388,000, we don't care. I say that loosely. But
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I care, but yeah, yeah,
So,
correct.
so Mr. Palumbo, from the standpoint of constructing a financial transaction, moving it out of an R.E. Davis account to just possibly put it back in, would it be permissible? In fact, I'm suggesting that it remain where it is, and then let us have that conversation, because it could end up that the facilities committee recommends that the money go right back in the account. I mean, there's not danger because of the way the money was put in there. It's not going to end up on downtown Broad Street or anything, So I'm a little worried, because if we move it out and just say it's going to be up for grabs, if you will, if the facilities committee comes back and says, well, it needs to be for the completion of this proposed facility, then that's just a food for thought.
Well,
Sure.
and in a way,
I agree with him.
Yeah.
I do agree with him. I
Okay.
think that the facilities committee needs to go ahead and look at it, because the community is very aware of this funding, and they would like to see this funding stay in that community. So I would definitely suggest that the facility, whatever is going to happen, let the facilities committee look at it and bring their recommendation back.
Oh, okay, if that's the plan, thank you for that. We appreciate that.
anything, Mr. Zell? So basically, we're
No, sir, I'm sorry about that. I was having trouble, technical problems. Thank you.
anybody else have an issue just to give it to the facilities committee? And then have them okay. Anything else on this topic? All right. And then 4.4, discussion on procurement process update. Ms. Spearman, we talked about this last year. Like I heard from the grapevine, there's some things working, some things are not. Can you give us an update of what's going on?
Well, originally, we contacted Smart Fusion, and as you know, we reported that we submitted a purchase order for that cost of establishing that electronic process. I think it was just another module within the accounting system. We did that at the beginning of the fall of 2023. Finance was then told that Smart Fusion had a new client that would need all hands on deck, and that they would notify us when we could move to the next step. And so months later, they sent us a spreadsheet to begin doing what is called approval trees, which is basically the document process flow of what we wanted. We're still processing that because at that time the audit was going on, the retention bonuses were done, and then we submitted the audit in time by the due date of December 1st. Then Christmas breaks comes. So we're now back where we're ready to attack these approval trees, but we have some questions about ensuring that the approval trees are account driven and not people driven. And so they had submitted a spreadsheet, a process form that was person driven. And because people leave and go and move and all that, we don't want to tie it to that. So we're going to have a meeting with Smart Fusion to ramp this back up and to ensure that we have the proper form and that it will flow the way that we need it to. We need it by account number because that is the most reliable information that we can rest on. And so we hope to have that meeting between us and IT, because we're going to stick together through this so that we can be supported and ensure that this process will happen within the next couple of weeks so we can move to the next step. That's the status.
You don't know the timeline of a
No,
month
until we have
to
that meeting we'll have a better timeline at that point.
Okay, and at one, you don't have to get back to me directly, but if you can remember at one of the financial briefings, if you can kind of bring that up, and if you find out that information about,
Absolutely.
have an idea, because there's a lot of teachers right now, it's not all teachers that do the procurement, but a lot of individuals that trying to get stuff taking weeks,
Yeah.
and I don't understand how it takes weeks.
Well, there are some things that we can discuss if you would like to, but yes, I'm aware of those things, and I can tell you about some of those things if you
Okay.
wanted to talk about it.
Anybody else? Thank you for the update. That kind of goes into 4.5. That and then kind of goes along with the 4.4 that I'm hoping that they can tag into there is security and safety purchases. I don't think we have except for our safety security person. Do we know when he's coming back? Gotcha. So my concern, and this comes from I have a law enforcement background, and when I did procurement, and it's kind of like with the same thing with IT, you have to get the okay from the IT. Part of the procurement process I like to see is to get actually, well, we hired somebody, the security specialist, but that be for anything that from everything from fence signs, from cameras to monitors, anything that deals with safety and security, a professional needs to be actually approving those items. For example, that I looked in visiting schools and stuff like that, Rafton Creek looks like a penitentiary. I'm seeing the having an 8-foot wall, like that's like restricted area stuff in the military, with the barbed wire. That to metal detectors not having the monitors. Why didn't we buy monitors with the metal detectors? We probably would have gotten it, because I usually, when I purchased that stuff, I always went to get me a discount on purchasing massive amounts of that type of stuff. I've seen some of the security cameras that are recently a few years old, that when they purchased them, they were already outdated. So I know a lot of these salespeople, they like to blow smoke, but I think we really need to have a professional to, before they sign off on purchasing these, especially contracts, our person needs to be signing off on those items before we go ahead and purchase them. One, because they're security experts or safety experts. And if we don't have him around right now, is I know a lot of the sheriff department or police department, they do have those expertise to a way for them to help us out, to have an idea to look at what we're about to purchase and get the okay to purchase those type of items. So I'm going to throw that out there, is to add to the procurement process, if it has anything to deal with those items, why aren't we getting a professional to actually look at them?
My brief answer to this is we kind of are. It depends on what specifically we're talking about. Without going into too much detail, because I can't. The police chief here in Sumter and I have discussions quite often about what is needed where, the kind of stuff that's needed where. If you're talking about configurations and things
No.
of that nature, that's not what you're talking about?
No, well,
Okay.
it depends on the situation with it. I
Right.
know what you're getting at that I don't want to discuss.
Okay.
I'm not going
well,
down
well,
that. Yeah, I do not want to discuss
Mr. Chair,
that.
I'm not going to do that, because that's, yeah.
And I totally, that is
Sure.
more of a classified type thing.
Sure.
We should, but, I mean, that person needs to be involved, and I think I know what you're getting at. But
Sure.
if it's dealing with certain purchases from security cameras, where the professional knows it needs a 360 rotating camera, and they put up a 180, wh- why isn't a professional looking at what needs to be there except for a salesperson say, well, that needs a 360, but it's really depending on us. So it can be everything from fence lines to safety as in fire equipment or whatever fire equipment together. So before we purchase those type of items, because we may be buying something that is cheap and it's not really workable for us. And to have somebody just look at the item and sign off on it and give the okay.
Without going into a ton of detail, I think the attention of employing and securing the safety and security director, part of what we're looking for that position to do forward is just what you're talking about, because we have a central person that now has the responsibility for making us better in terms of safety. The other piece that I think is important, just as it is with IT in general, stuff's being updated and changed all the time. You know, you can be as compliant as you want to be today, and 2 years from now they tell you all the stuff is out of compliance. The other thing is, if we're talking about metal detection, just use that as one example. Metal detection, as you know, as we all know, has changed tremendously probably in the last couple of years. You know, it used to be we warned at people, and then we had these devices that you walk through like at the airport, you know, with the overhead. And now where we go, we're seeing these poles, pretty much what I call them, that we walk through in the color, you know. So I think for school districts, because of the way we have been taught to purchase things and so forth, I think what you're saying to us is very good and needs to be considered. But I think that we haven't necessarily been not doing it the right way in the past. It's just that we are now entering an age where everybody wants to say safety and security equipment, and it's not necessarily in the best interest. So I think the point is well taken for us to, you know, get some consulting, if you will, from those that are working with that every day. And without going into a tremendous amount of detail, Mr. Palumbo and other members, those conversations are going on. You know, some of that stuff you just can't publicize. You understand what I'm saying?
And like I know Mr. Myers, he's, you know, he knows a lot, but he's not. I mean, literally, there's certifications now for people to have under their belt that are like, no, we don't want to do this. This is a waste of money. I used to years ago used to have that certification. Wish I still had it. That basically, when a principal brings up, hey, I want this for my school, instead of going out there and, hey, I'm gonna go buy it, this individual, whenever he gets back, he needs to be on that procurement to sign off on it to say yes, because you may have one school buy one item, another school buy a different item, and some of these sales, I've seen some of these pieces of equipment, and they're not going to stop anything, especially for active shooter and all that type of stuff. That's where I want to make sure that we're buying the actual stuff it's going to stop the bad guy, or at least delay the bad guy, and not going out there spending on stuff, because I've seen some of the camera systems and it's skipping, the video skipping, and I mean, I've seen where some of these Walmarts and malls have better camera systems, and these are our pride and joy in these schools. So, and so that's why I want to make sure that we're about to purchase items and put it on contract, that we actually have a certified individual that will sign off on it and say, yeah, you guys this is the item that needs to happen. So that's my biggest thing is when we do get the procurement process and it's all going to be electronic, why don't we add that to the process before you start to purchase the item?
Make sure that the people that are in charge of those areas do approve, and that is how we actually do the paper walk.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
We do that with making sure the
It's
departments
1980
know,
stuff.
especially even if it's federal money. Title I has to know every dime that gets approved to be spent. So yes, that is definitely going to be within this process.
The other thing without, I'm gonna try to stay as politically correct in making this statement as I can. Vendor vetting for school districts is almost a full-time job. And what I mean by that is, we get emails and calls and demonstrations if we ask for them just about every day from vendors that say, I know you got some money. Here's what we can do to make things better. What I have encouraged since I've been here is, first of all, I don't typically take those meetings without the people who are in the department that it affects. So, for the example that you're using, I'm not going to meet with folks and talk about safety and security without our safety and security folks being there, because they're the ones that are going to have to implement whatever it is that we're doing. But they're going to approach you guys as board members. They're going to approach these gentlemen here if they know they're on the finance committee, because we've got a lot of vendors, and I'm not putting all vendors in the bad bag, but we got a lot of folks out here that'll tell you, this is how I can help you do what you do. And some of them are incorrect. Some of the stuff that they're coming up with is not appropriate. So what we try to do to combat that is, if we are making safety and security purchases moving forward, then William doesn't sit in the room and make that decision. I get Mr. Myers and Mr. Jonas or whomever needs to be involved in those decision-making processes. If I have to have the whole AELT in there, we do that, because for me, it's important that, somebody comes up with something that I may not even be thinking of. And so as we're talking about safety and security or curricular selections or whatever that we're doing, that vendor vetting, like I said, is just about a full-time job. You'd be amazed at, I guess between now and beginning of the school year, Mr. Myers, ain't no telling how many folks I had the perfect metal detection system for you, and here's what it'll cost, and come on, go with me today, and don't worry about Johnny down the street. So we have to spend a significant amount of time, yes, with the finance folks, but also personally vetting some of this stuff, and that sometimes that requires getting in the car and riding somewhere where somebody has that system already in place. But yes, for the procurement system process, I think we can make sure that those folks are in place.
Mr. Zell, you have anything?
Mr. Chair, not much. Just I wanted to say, I appreciate Dr. Wright's input on that, and I agree. We have to be very keenly aware that our $158 million budget brings a lot of folks who want to sell us stuff. So we need to make sure that we are getting the right product that meets the problem and provides a solution to the problem that we have. And so I'm very on the side of that. So we just need to be very careful. But I agree with both you gentlemen. I appreciate you letting me say that. Thank you.
Yeah, it's just because I've been the one that same thing with Ms. Spearman, and these vendors will come, and a lot of times too, even at the point when I was in the military, is I had to get my other experts, security experts, because it's something that I was not familiar with, and to get there okay. Um, I just want to make sure it's equivalent, like of IT is before we purchase those items, because that's basically it's very similar. The security and safety stuff that you can, from everything from security systems to camera systems. I mean, it's high tech stuff, and I mean, it literally IT should also, and that also on that procurement, IT should be looking also along with the security. You know, if depending on so, but anything that deals with that safety is some of that stuff out there is it's just horrible stuff. And if you go and you put millions of dollars to it, we just now bought something that is just it's not going to last years, and that's why my concern is on some certain purchase that we've done in the past. I question it, and I would say more of is it more because we didn't have an expert to look at it, and that's where I'm not saying there's somebody's going out there and say, well, you know. Um, I think if we had that expertise to look at it, we can be saving a lot of money, and also sometimes our security experts know people that can get us even bigger discounts because all they have to do is make a phone call that I used to do, so and pin the vendors against each other. But yeah, that's why I would just want to make sure. So, thank you. Anything else to add to the discussion? All right, we'll move on. To 5.2. Um, recommendations to the Board of Trustees. Mr. Zell, go ahead.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, of course I'm gonna say something. Always count on me, I guess. But I would like to just make a couple
Oh, 5.1.
suggestions, not necessarily regarding anything in the weeds regarding finance, but more of the schedule. I had mentioned it to Ms. Spearman, and I got pretty positive feedback based on her response. I would like to suggest that we consider, and I would like Dr. Wright's position on this as well, if he would, to consider putting out, first off for you as a finance chairman, putting out a longer term schedule so that we can, maybe a quarterly schedule for our monthly or whatever you deem appropriate, so that we have sort of a better understanding of what's to come, and so that people can really plan around the schedule. And then number two, on the CIA committee, Chairwoman Disney actually had a meeting, and I think it was around 10 a.m. And so I just want to sort of get feedback from the district to find out, so we're valuing their time, and we're not keeping, which I'm counting about 10 people in that room right now who probably, this is important stuff, but they have families too. And I just want to make sure that we're valuing their time, and if we could put a schedule together or agree to a time maybe at the end of the workday or the beginning, because cutting right into it's probably not real good. But I just want to put that out there, a feeler, and see what y'all think. And I think that would, really show that our executive team that we value their time and their efforts. And so that's just the two things I wanted to make. And so thank you for allowing me for that.
Thank you, especially community members. You're right. During the middle of the day, right after kind of the work day, because I know both, because you're a teacher. What is your thoughts on that type of stuff? If it was more during the day or right after work?
I sit on 3 other boards, and I have one at 8 o'clock in the morning, I have one at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and I have one at 6 o'clock at night. So, doesn't matter to me.
Gotcha. You can't do it if it's not in the evening. And then you've got classes.
It would be a matter of having coverage and creating issues like that. Well, yeah, but you don't want to pull in your favors all the time.
Miss Spearman and Mr. Myers. So, what we're all saying is it better off is the way to keep it around that 5 o'clock hour?
The answer for that is, for me, is if it's on a regular schedule, it's better for me. I can always have it.
Gotcha.
Then I know at some points in times we were looking at 6 o'clock, then
Yeah.
5 o'clock, and that part does not work for me. So if it's scheduled quarterly at 5 o'clock, fine.
Okay.
I can put on the calendar.
So if I keep it around 5 o'clock, at the 5 o'clock hour. Okay. Anybody else? All right. I think Mrs. L. I think we're gonna probably still keep it at the 5 o'clock hour, and we'll have a longer quarterly future agenda. I just got to work with Mr. Reagan on. Of course, we're gonna have the master plan. So we don't want to all week be in here. That or we're talking about finances and it's the same thing the next day. And I kind of avoid that. So, yeah, so, gotcha. Anything else for steps to move forward? No? All right, we're wrapping this up. Recommendations to the Board of Trustees. So basically, one is the Ari Davis, get the facilities committee to move on, to let them do their thing. Also would be, I think that would clarify more of with the quarterly meetings, which I'll bring it up to the board and.
Right, that would be a recommendation too, Mr. Chair.
I just want to make sure we don't, in the future, get burned. And yeah, again, I'm not saying it's not her. It could be somebody else in the future that we could, and that's why I'm trying to avoid it, you know. And so, and then I think we heard about procurement. Hopefully, it's moving along, and then we can add the security to that. And again, that's not all purchases. God, no, you guys, that would take forever to go through all that. Even if it's electronic, I mean, still be a lot faster. But but the way it's going right now is piece of paper going back and forth. It's taking forever. Sir, Dr. Wright, do you have any closing remarks that you wanna start off with?
Just as I always do, I appreciate us having these discussions, and we're certainly trying to make sure. I think all of us are interested in making sure that funding is used appropriately and that it benefits our staff and students and staff. Let me say it in that order, as well as possible. So, Mr. Chair, appreciate your leadership in doing this work, and we'll continue to get better every day. That's what I'm working on. Thank you.
Thank you for all your help and,
Yes,
and
sir.
your leadership and
Yes, sir.
moving the football down the field.
Yes, sir.
Anybody else? Ms. Johnson, do you have any closing remarks for us as board member? Anybody else? Mr. Zell, do you have anything?
No, sir, just thank all of you in attendance for all your hard work and efforts, and I'm really looking forward to a very, very positive and effective, results-oriented 2024. Thank you.
Thank you, and I know we're gonna start rolling down the runway a little bit on up and coming fiscal year, getting ready for that, and that's probably gonna be our next meeting. Again, just going to get an update to see on whether there's what are we getting ready to do for the county council next year and all that type of stuff. So I appreciate everybody who came out today. I think we got a lot of questions answered, and future solutions is gonna be presented. And again, I think us as a board our biggest thing is we definitely don't want to get in the way with everything, but we definitely want to do our due diligence and oversight to make sure taxpayers getting what they're getting for their children out there, and making sure our children are, it always takes money to get the educational materials and the professionals and for them to increase their ability to learn and for getting them ready to transition to become adults out there. And I like where we're going. Things are starting to move, and hopefully we got better things to come. And I know we have. There's going to be a lot more good things to come. And so I would like to thank everybody who attended today, and this meeting's adjourned. Thank you.